The New South Wales government would never ever give the green light to thousands of people flagrantly disregarding the health orders. That never was and never will be our intention. Let me make it very, very clear that all of us have given up so much and worked so hard in order to make sure that we get on top of the virus. And to date, New South Wales has been very successful only because all of us have taken the hard yards of making those difficult decisions. We've not visited family, we've not attended events, we've not done what we normally do in order to keep the community safe. Earlier this week, as I understand it, a request was put in for a small protest to the police. It was a small protest which would have been managed similarly to the small protests that took place during the course of this week, where people respected the health orders and they respected social distancing. There are health orders in place in New South Wales at the moment in relation to public gatherings, in relation to the number of people in a public space, etc. When I spoke to the Commissioner, and it became abundantly clear that police would not be able to assure the maintenance of those health orders, that the number of protesters far exceeded what the initial request was, the Police Commissioner and I discussed the fact that the Police Commissioner would apply to the Supreme Court to have the intended process or the intended protest tomorrow that was intended to go ahead deemed illegal. This is because the protesters could not guarantee adherence to the health orders, they could not guarantee safe social distancing, and simply the number of protesters far exceeds the health orders, and we can't afford to have exceptions for anybody. All of us, as I said, have made enormous sacrifices. And if people had made the decision to express their views strongly in a COVID-safe way, which is the comments we made yesterday and the day before, that would have been acceptable within the health orders, but that is not the case. So the protest that is intended or was intended to go on tomorrow will be sought to have an injunction put on against in the Supreme Court, or the application has been made, and the Police Commissioner will outline that in further detail. But I want to make this point clear. The New South Wales government never has and never would give the green light to thousands and thousands of protesters who do not support the health orders. Everybody knows what the health orders are, and there's a public gathering number which supports people going to a beach or going to a park. No more than gatherings of 10 personally, and under the current public gathering health order, there is a health order for 500, but that is with social distancing. That allows police to maintain social distancing in a public space like a beach or a park. But when a protest organisation cannot guarantee that those participating in the protest will adhere to social distancing, will adhere to the health orders, that is deemed an illegal act. And again, we saw during the week people express themselves in a COVID-safe way. Clearly, that is not the intention of what's happening tomorrow, irrespective of the issue. And I also, again, make this point. If you feel so strongly about an issue during a pandemic, please consider expressing your views in a different way. Don't compromise anybody else's health. Please consider outlining your views on Facebook or in a different way. But please do not breach the health orders. I'll ask now the Commissioner to speak, then Minister Hazzard, and then of course we'll take any questions.
Thanks, Premier. And good morning. A New South Wales Police Force every year facilitates nearly 1,000 protests in the Sydney CBD alone. Several hundreds of thousands of people come in and safely protest for a whole range of causes. This is pre, during and post-COVID-19. In relation to this protest on Saturday, started off as a static protest with 50 people. Police work with organisers who have to submit certain documentation to ensure that the protest is lawful, which did occur. Like with any protest, we have daily dialogue to assess the risk in relation to not just the protesters, but the general community and the police, of course. And we facilitate or assist with so many protests without issue. This protest in particular has grown in numbers We don't just take advice and guidance from the protest organisers, we also view social media closely. As of this morning, that had escalated to a potential 10,000 protesters turning up, and the organiser himself admitted that he couldn't ensure that the protesters could adhere to his Form 1 or the current health orders. I spoke to the Premier this morning and said on the basis of that, the only option was for the protesters to cease their wish to protest or for us to take the matter to the Supreme Court. Assistant Commissioner Mick Fuller, who joins me here today, confirmed that later this morning, and we have commenced legal action on the basis that we don't believe the protest can be conducted in a safe way. Now, obviously, that will take a few hours. We won't know the answer to that question until later this afternoon. Now, regardless of that, we have been pre-planning for this protest like we do any other. Regardless of the outcome of the Supreme Court application, police will be in force in a coordinated way to ensure the safety of the protesters and to ensure the safety of the general public and, of course, the police. Thank you.
As at today, and over the last few months, we've had 3,110 cases of COVID-19, people who have actually contracted this extremely dangerous virus. In the last 24 hours, the community has continued to be a strong partner with the government and recognising that testing is so important. More than 10,000 people have come forward in the last 24 hours to be tested for COVID-19. They know, as we all know throughout our state, throughout our country, that this virus is still dangerous, and they've come forward because they want to protect themselves, but they also want to protect their friends, their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents, their mums, their dads. As Health Minister, I have to say that I am extremely concerned when 10,000, more than 10,000 people in the last 24 hours have come forward in that spirit of goodwill, in that spirit of caring about the entire community to be tested. I am concerned that there would be the possibility of very large numbers of people coming together, albeit to express a view, their democratic right to express a view. But in the current COVID-19 context, I am extremely concerned about the possible consequences for the community more broadly. We only need a few people in that crowd that may come forward in the next 24 hours to actually have this virus, to cause all the good work that our community has done in the last 5 months to come unstuck. As Health Minister, there have been orders made that have been very challenging, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that they've impinged on all of our freedoms, but we've done it for a reason. We've done it to keep all of us safe, our entire community safe. So I would ask very much that the community reflect on the fact that we have a maximum of $500 in 500 people, we have a maximum of 500 people in any outdoor gathering for a good health reason. It's a health reason that has been driven by all of the chief health officers. It's not political. It's about health. It's about keeping us safe. 500 maximum outside. And in groups of 10, no more than groups of 10. So I would certainly say to the organisers of this particular function to realise that the health orders are there for a reason. And to all of the community, I would implore you, please remember, we are part of the same great journey to keep us all safe.
I did not give the green light, can I say? Well, on the basis, can I say this? During the week, we have seen people express a strong view in a COVID-safe way, no more than groups of 10, in a very controlled way, working with the police. When I was advised that that was not the case, when thousands of people had registered to be part of what is now an illegal protest, of course, the Commissioner and I discussed the issue and have since taken action. But can I say this? We appreciate how difficult the current circumstances are in relation to the health orders, but I want to be very, very clear. At no stage did the New South Wales government support or give the green light or give the go-ahead to thousands and thousands of people flagrantly breaching the health rules. All of us will recall earlier in the week, whether it was frontline workers or others, expressed a strong view within groups of 10, in multiple groups of 10, in a safe way, and a protest which was registered with the police. This is not that. And I call on everybody who has registered to say they will turn up, not to turn up. We do not want anybody flouting the health orders. The health orders are there for a reason, and in New South Wales, we wouldn't ever want to be in a position where people are denied that expression of freedom, but do it in a different way. We cannot have thousands and thousands of people gathering together, and it only takes a couple, one or two people to have the virus. That is never anything we agreed to. And if you look at every single word I said, if you look at every single word any member of my government has said, and I've taken swift action against those in my own team who've breached the health orders. And, you know, we haven't all worked so hard to have all that work undone. And if people make a reasonable request to the police, and the police consider that, that's a matter for the police, but clearly the nature of that reasonable request, which was put in, I understand, some days ago, has substantially changed. It in no way anymore complies to the health orders. It in no way anymore complies to what is regarded as safe. So I say to all those thousands of people, do not think about breaching the health orders. When the protesters first contacted police, what they put to police was extremely different to what is being put now. And that was confirmed to me this morning by the Commissioner. And after that conversation, the Commissioner advised me of the action he was taking, which I fully support. Notwithstanding the issue or the matters why people are expressing themselves, express it differently. I mean, my family didn't celebrate Easter the way we do because of COVID. Other families didn't celebrate so many other things because of COVID. So many people have taken different decisions than they normally would. So I say to people who have a strong view, please express that view in a way that doesn't breach the health orders. If the police commissioner was confident that the expression tomorrow publicly complied with the health orders, that perhaps could be managed, but it's clear that is not the case. And I want to stress again a million times, that we have never ever said as a government anything apart from making sure that every activity, every action you take is COVID safe. And as all of you would know, when protesters want to conduct a protest, their contact is directly with the police on an ongoing basis, and that is exactly what happened in this instance. And as a government, we take our advice and our lead from the police. And when the police commissioner advised me that he did not feel confident the protesters would respect the health orders, or that it would be within the health orders as first foreshadowed, that's when the action was taken. I'm sorry, one at a time. Yeah. Okay, go.
This morning the police minister said he doesn't support the Black Lives Matter protest, which was what was planned. Does that disappoint you, and do you support them?
I think it's, to be honest, it's not the issue that's the question here. It is not the question.
It can't be separated. I mean,
Well, it can be separated because I feel strongly about things as well, but I will not go out there and express a view in a public way which compromises the health and safety of others. Yes, so long as it is within the health rules. And clearly what this protest has turned into is a flagrant disregard for the health rules. And I want to make... Nope. Well, the advice I receive is from the police, and the advice, yes, and I'll ask the Commissioner to back that in. And when I received advice, when I spoke to the Commissioner this morning, and he advised me that after contacting the protesters as late as this morning, what the update was. And as a government, we have to know that in a pandemic, we have to make sure not only that we ask everybody to respect the rules, but we also deal with situations as they arrive. If 10 people within a group were expressing a view, or multiples of 10 people in a controlled way which was COVID safe, then that's up to the police whether they accepted that. But clearly this is not happening. And I have empathy for people who feel strongly about the issue at heart here, to your question. Well, but can I say, irrespective of how I feel about the issue, of course I empathise with how strongly people feel. But notwithstanding how people feel about an issue, you cannot disregard the health orders. And that is why we're saying to people, express your views. Bring your views to the attention of people you want to bring that to, but in a responsible and safe way, not through breaching the health orders. That is not acceptable. I'll ask the Police Commissioner to answer that.
Yeah, thanks. In terms of protests are lawful in New South Wales. Protesters, if they submit the appropriate documentation, known as a Form 1, get protection from the Summary Offences Act, which means we can't use a number of our powers that we normally would in a public unlawful gathering. Now, in this case, the Form 1 was submitted in the appropriate amount of time, which means if the organisers refuse to stop the protest, then the only way forward is for the Supreme Court to make the ultimate decision in relation to that. So it's a public place, public space, so if people turn up and it's within the health orders, then that's fine. Now you have to understand, it is okay, but the Form 1 is all about starting at a certain point, marching on the road and finishing in a certain point. So the Form 1 does give some guarantee to police in the community in terms of what is going to happen. So in terms of that, what happens if 10 people turn up in Pitt Street tomorrow, then we wish them well. But if hundreds and hundreds or thousands of people turn up, then they're in breach of the health order. And if they haven't complied with the Supreme Court, then obviously all the police powers that are available to us can be used. But we would much rather see a peaceful outcome. I think Sydney siders are more mature than what we've seen in the press. Police obviously will be out, but we will continue to work with the people of New South Wales. So again, you have to understand that this is not the first protest in Sydney. There's certainly the first protest with this sort of interest in the last 12 months, but we trained for this. We've got experienced commanders. Assistant Commissioner Willing will take command from the Police Operations Centre. We know how to work well with members of the community and protest to get peaceful outcomes. I mean, that's what we want essentially. We want lawful, peaceful outcomes, but as the Premier said, is that there's so many other ways that you can voice your concerns at the moment, and people are doing that through social media and through a whole range of other platforms. We're not saying that you could never protest again, but it's just not the right time at the moment. Look, I'd like to think the protest organisers would say that New South Wales Police stayed at the table and negotiated right up until the 11th hour. We do that consistently. We understand the importance of freedom of speech, but we also understand at the end of the day we need to keep all the community safe.
Can I say the potential for a second wave and an outbreak of coronavirus is extremely high in New South Wales, which is why we've been very cautious and very consistent in asking people to follow the restrictions. And can I say from the bottom of my heart, I am so deeply grateful for the patience the community has demonstrated, for the way in which everybody has really stood up and taken our advice in a way that I couldn't have imagined, and it makes me feel incredibly proud. And therefore I'm asking and appealing and pleading with those thousands of people who've indicated they're turning up to a protest, please do not do it. Stay at home, express yourself in a different way. And as the Police Commissioner said, of course we want to be in a position where people can do things freely within the health restrictions, but when there's an activity planned that flagrantly breaches the restrictions, irrespective of how passionately I or anybody else feel about the issue, we need to take this action, and we don't do it lightly. So I'm pleading with people to say I appreciate how strongly people feel about the issue, but please express your strength of feeling in a different way. Well, can I say from day one on this issue, I've backed the police. Police manage the protest issues. The police are the ones that deal with the protesters, and I want to commend the police for attempting to work with the protesters from day one. But when can you just let me find? Yeah. But when it became obvious to police that the protesters weren't able to give a guarantee about complying with the health orders or respecting what was in place, well, then it becomes a public health safety issue in the middle of a pandemic. And again, I say we've seen examples of small groups of protesters. We've seen examples of people respecting the public gatherings and the group gathering numbers during the week. But obviously when the Police Commissioner advises me that he can't give that assurance tomorrow and that the protesters aren't in a position to be able to negotiate and guarantee those arrangements, well then it's a public health issue, and I can't afford to have anybody feel that it's okay to relax in New South Wales. I can't remember or count the number of times I've said that. I think I've spoken to most of you almost on a daily basis for 3 months on this issue. Please, please respect the restrictions. I don't want to deny that people feel passionately about the issues, and all of us do, most of us do. But please express your passion in a safe way during a pandemic. Please make sure you don't take any chances, because I completely am concerned about an outbreak or a second wave which unfortunately undoes all the great work we've put in place. And I know how hard our team has worked, can I tell you, with very little sleep and with much vigour, much vigilance to keep the community safe. But having said that, if something is proposed in a safe, COVID-safe way, whether it's the police or whether it's anybody else, have given that a look at. And initially, that's what the police were presented with, a COVID-safe plan. But when that is breached, when that's disregarded, it is a public health safety issue. It puts themselves and other people at risk, and we can't afford to see that happen. And again, it doesn't take away from the issue, and it wouldn't matter what the issue was. I'm not commenting on what the issue is that people are protesting about, because I know passions are high. But what I am commenting about is asking everybody just to do the responsible thing in the middle of a pandemic. And the police, in my view, have worked very hard to negotiate with the protesters, but when this morning it was apparent that those negotiations had failed to reach a safe compromise, a safe position, that police had no option. And I backed the police, but I also backed the police